Camera movement techniques, what not to do. The way camera moves in your project will have a major impact on your movie. I will teach you exactly how to do it like a pro, but before I do, I really have to teach you what not to do. We have here what we can call a bad example of camera movement. What the animator was trying to do is to make a movie of 1 minute showing everything in one big camera movement. Well, that is just wrong. Why is it wrong? One, it will make your camera movement much difficult to handle. As you can see, the camera had to pass into trees and the movement is just annoying. I'm sure that the animator who did this tried to fix that, but as you can see, that's the best he could get. 2. If you do that, you will have to add details in everything on your pass, resulting in a very big detailed scene and more render time. 3. The viewer will lose focus and get distracted by that movement. They don't know what exactly are you showing. So, since we are professionals now, that's not what we are going to do. What we are going to do is 1. We will get our camera passes sketches. 2. We will work our way through them with professional cinematics techniques for camera movements used by real movie creators. In this section, we will learn the techniques like the pan, the dolly, the vertigo, and other amazing techniques that really affects the quality of your movies, making the final product perfect. So get ready to learn how to do this cinematics in Max, and let's get started. Parallel camera movement, the dolly. The dolly is the easiest yet one of the most beautiful camera movement techniques. In real life, dolly is a camera that moves on a rail like this. In Max, we will animate our camera and target parallel to a desired feature in our scene, focusing on the details and beauty of that specific feature in our design. We can animate dolly in 3 ways. Up-down movement, usually showing the beauty of the elevations or side views of our buildings. Top dolly shows the beauty of the layout, design, and the landscape. Left-right dolly can show both the beauty of the building and the landscape as well. Let's open our project and let's see how can we use our dolly in a project like that. Well, I will try the first type, the up-down movement here, to show the beauty of the elevation. Let's start by creating a Vray physical camera right here and try to position it as parallel as we can to that elevation. So now we have a camera that is parallel to the elevation of the villa. Now the camera has been created on a 0 level in Z position. So if we press C while it is still selected, we will view what the camera is shooting. Now the camera at the 0 level, it is basically shooting under the building. We will use our middle mouse button to pan and move it upwards, and that will be our first frame of our camera movement. For a symmetric elevation like this villa, we will try to center our first shot like that. Now it's time to animate our camera from down to up. First, select the camera and go top and zoom extent. Then choose cameras in the selection filter here. Now select both the camera and the target and press the pink lamp here to isolate. Now group them and give that group a name. By grouping both the camera and the target together, it will be much easier to animate the Z position of that group, thus animating both the camera and the target simultaneously. Back to our scene and go to our camera viewport. Let's say I want to animate a 10 seconds small movie. We will start by opening the Auto key and go to frame 300 and press enter. While the group of the camera and target is still selected, we will move it upwards using the spinners on the Z position till the top of the building. And that will be our end frame. Now close the Auto key. If we moved the animation bar, we can see the animation has been created. Okay, now we have a problem. We can't play our animation in real time because we have a heavy scene and the graphic card can't handle playing it in real time. That's a common problem that faces animators of big scenes, and it will probably face you too. We now can't be sure whether our camera movement is too fast or too slow. Luckily, there is a feature that solves the problem in 3ds Max called Grab Viewport. Grab Viewport will create a real-time movie of your camera with the viewport quality and produce a video file that can be played in your media player. To grab the viewport, go to Tools, Preview, Grab Viewport, and press Create Preview Animation. The Make Preview window opens. We can choose to preview a custom range of frames from here, in our case from frame 0 to frame 300, our 10 seconds animation. Down here is the percentage of the output based on the resolution that is set in the render setup. The number 100 here means 100% of the resolution of 1280 times 720. If we decrease the percentage to 50%, the preview movie resolution will be half of that resolution that is already set. So the movie will be created with a 640 by 360 resolution. Let's set the resolution and press Create. When you press Create, Max starts creating the preview video. We will see a progress bar under the timeline, and we will see the progress of the video in the middle of the screen. The speed of creation of that movie will be determined based on your graphic card and the poly count of your scene. If you find this process too slow, hit Escape. Max will ask you to play the part that is finished in the default media player. To make it render faster previews, we can hide the unnecessary elements in our scene. It helps a lot when everything is organized on layers. We can hide the unnecessary layers from here. Let's make our preview animation again. Notice this time it renders much faster. On my machine, it renders a frame every 1 second, so the preview animation is finished after 5 minutes on my machine. But for this lecture, I had to speed it up. Now I can see my camera movement in real time. Max created a video file and opened it on my default media player. It's a good idea to find that video file and keep it, because later we will use that file for our client's approval. The preview file is automatically saved inside our project folder in a folder called Preview. Inside that folder, you will find a video file named _scene. And that is the video file that Max has just created. This is a temporary file. That means if we made another preview animation from Max, it will override this one unless we rename it. So by giving it a new name, Max will not overwrite it in the next time it creates a preview animation. So that's it for the down-up parallel camera movement. By using the same techniques, we can also create the top dolly and the side dolly as well. Camera movement techniques. The crane. The crane is one of the advanced camera movement techniques used by filmmakers. In real life, they attach the camera on a device like this. It can be a small device like this one or a huge one like that one. Crane movement is usually used to enhance the epic nature of large sets. Another use is to move up and away from the desired target, showing the context of the neighborhood of our building. Crane movement is a common way of ending a movie. Let's learn how to animate crane-like camera movement in 3ds Max. Let's open our project. Now we want to animate our camera starting from the corner here to the other side there. Let's start by creating a physical camera at the corner and the target at the building. Now press C to view the camera. It's created at the 0 level. Move it up by using the pen with the middle mouse button. Press Shift plus F to show the save frame and adjust your first frame shot. Use camera tools to adjust for interesting shot from the corner. When satisfied, use the two viewports layout. Make one for the camera and the other one for the top view. Press T for top and Z for zoom extent, and then press Shift plus F to disable the save frames. Now we have a camera at the corner and a target at the middle of the building. To animate the crane, we will select our camera. And we can set our selection filter to cameras so we don't accidentally select other scene objects. We can also select the camera and rename it from here. We will call it the crane. Now select the crane camera, open the auto key, go to frame 300 and move our camera. And since we have the two viewport layout set, any movement to the camera will be updated in the camera viewport here. Now let's move our camera to the other corner like this. Next, we will move it up by increasing the value of Z position using these spinners. Let's take a look. Our camera is flying above the building now. Go to the viewport and continue adjusting the last frame using the camera tools. In this frame, we need to go back and show the context. Close the auto key and examine the movement using the animation slider. Now the animation is okay, but I want to fine-tune it to make it look perfect. The problem is it gets too near to the building at these frames, and I want it to move back. To investigate this problem, let's go to the top and zoom in to the camera. That's where the camera comes close to the building. To fix this problem, we will use motion trajectories. Go to motion and press trajectories. Now we can see the path of our camera shown in a dotted red line. Let's isolate to see it more clearly. Now Max is showing us where the camera is moving. Now the camera is moving between 2 points, the first and the last keyframes. To have a better control, we will have to add another keyframe at the middle. Let's go to frame 150 and add a keyframe. This keyframe will add a point on the trajectories here. By pressing the button Sub-Object, I can now control the position of the keyframes. Let's add a keyframe at frame 150 by pressing Set Key button. Now we can move that keyframe and we can see the effect on the whole trajectory line. Now let's unisolate and watch the effect on our camera movement. Let me undo the movement of the middle frame using Ctrl Z, and let's control the movement live now, giving it some curve to the outside. I worked on that camera a bit more by opening the Auto key and adjusting the end frame, moving the camera itself until I feel the shot is perfect. But then I met a problem. My camera moved inside one of the trees. That's not something nice to be in my animation. I had to find a solution to that. After trying out several ways to fix that, I found out the best thing is to move the tree just a little bit, giving my camera a free way to move. Now my camera movement is good to go. Just one more thing. Before we create our preview animation, we have to unhide other elements that will appear when we go far in the last frame. And since I have organized everything on layers, my job will be easy now. Just unhide the layers that will appear in this camera. Now the camera is ready for preview animation. Tools, grab viewport, create preview animation. This time I will increase the quality to 100%. Press create and also increase the compression quality to 100% and press OK. On my machine, it took about 7 minutes to create the preview video. Then it automatically plays it in my default media player. Just like we did in the other cameras, we have to go to the preview folder inside our project folder and rename the temporary files _scene to camera crane. So that's it for the crane camera animation. A beautiful camera movement technique for you to use in your upcoming projects. Camera movement techniques. The turntable. Turntable is a technique used for showcasing a product by shooting it from all 360-degree angles. In real life, they position the product on a rotational table like this, with a steady camera shooting the object while it's being rotated. It can be as simple as this one or more advanced version like that one. Turntable movement could be used to present a 360-degree animation of our building in one side of the video while showing their information on the other side of the video. Let's learn how to animate a 360-degree turntable animation in 3ds Max. Let's open our project and let's do the turntable on this villa. To speed up our workflow, let's hide some of the unnecessary layers in our project. We will start by creating a circle from the center of our desired building with a big radius that surrounds that building. Next, we will create a Vray physical camera with a target at the middle of the villa. Let's go to the left viewport and press C to see our camera view. Back to the top view, while the camera is still selected, we will go Animation, Constraints, Path Constraints, and then we select the circle as our path for the camera. Max automatically created an animation for our camera following the path of the circle in the 700 frames of our timeline. If we only want 300 frames for this camera, simply we can move that keyframe at 700 to frame 300. Now the camera will rotate at 360 degrees around our building in 300 frames. Let's select the camera and the circle and isolate for better view. Now this camera is now attached to that circle. If we move that circle up, our camera will follow along. By checking this viewport here, I realize that my camera target needs to be moved up as well. Right-click on my camera, select camera target and move it up in the Z position till the building is centered in my viewport here. Okay, now the building is centered, but the camera is too near. I want to show the whole building, so I will need to go back with my camera. Now, if I selected the camera and tried to move it backward, it won't move. And if I tried to move it using the camera controls here, it won't move either. Why? Because it's now attached to the circle. To solve this issue, I will need to either scale it like this or increase the radius from the spinners here. Let's scale it till we see the whole building in the viewport here. I can also adjust the view using move or rotate for the circle. And now I have a 360 degree turntable camera movement created. I continue working to fine-tune it by adjusting the circle and hiding the distracting bushes and trees and leaving only the villa and part of the landscape surroundings. To make my job easier, I created a new layer, called it Landscape to Hide. Made it hidden and used this Add Object to Current Layer button to hide more of the unnecessary objects. One of my objects, I had to deattach the needed part and hide the rest. Then I continued hiding other unnecessary elements and other cameras as well to minimize distraction. And now I have my refined camera movement ready. Let's use Ctrl plus Alt plus right click and grab the timeline to make it 300 frames. Now if we press play, we will find now that the camera is in a loop, which means that we can make it repeat itself forever without feeling the difference between the first and the last frame. We can make it more interesting if we added some ups and downs in the movement. Here's how. Let's select the circle and convert it to spline. Then we can go to the vertex sub-level and move some vertices upwards while checking the effect in the viewport here. We can also go to the spline level and scale it to make the camera go far. Now my camera is ready. Let's create preview animation. Tools, grab viewport, create preview animation, and press Create. Max creates the video and plays it in my media player. After watching the video, I realized that some parts of the surroundings get cropped out while rotating. So I fixed that by scaling the circle large enough to fit everything in my frames. I also did some refinements to the points on the circle. And increased the timeline to 400 frames so I can increase my animation frames and get a slower movement. Now my camera is refined and slower, and nothing is cropped in the movement. I made that so later on I can use the alpha channel to compose the animated villa on any background. Now let's create a preview animation again, but this time I want the 400 frames and press Create. Now we reached our perfect destination. One more step, let's go to the project folder, then preview folder, and rename the temporary file to Turntable. Next, we will save the max file as the turntable to be ready for render later on. We will also rename our camera to Turntable as well. So that's it for the turntable camera movement technique. Another powerful camera movement to have in your arsenal. Camera movement techniques, the Vertigo effect. Vertigo effect is one of the most interesting techniques usually used in horror movies to give the viewer a strong emotional impact. In Vertigo effect, the camera zooms in on a target, but at the same time, during the zoom, there is a continuous perspective distortion that messes with the mind of the viewer. People watching thinks that they are moving near an object, but the background is moving far away. In real life, they use a zooming lens to change the field of view of the camera. In Max, we will do the same. Here's how. So here's our project, and for the purpose of this lecture, I added a fountain in front of the villa here. Let's create a physical camera next to the entrance here and the target at the villa. Go to the other viewport, press C and adjust the first frame shot. In the first frame, I want to show the whole facade of the villa together with the fountain. We will move the camera backward, but we can't go too far because there is a door here. In this case, we will go to the camera properties and decrease the focal length, giving us a wider view. We will also select camera target and move it upwards using the spinner on the Z-axis. Now the first frame is set nicely. Let's animate the camera. First, let's set the timeline to 300 frames. Press Ctrl plus Alt plus right click and drag the timeline to the right till it becomes exactly 300. Let's open the Auto key, go to frame 300, and let's move in with the camera using the Dolly tool. Now that I moved in, I still want the fountain to be in my view. I will use the middle mouse button to pan the camera downwards. Now the basic animation is created. The trick here is to animate the focal length here. Let's decrease it till we have a nice end frame. Let's set it to 20 and press enter. And let's select the camera target and move it upwards till we have a nice end shot. And now the vertigo effect is created. Camera moves in while the background seems to go far, giving the viewer this strong emotional impact while emphasizing the beauty of the fountain. Let's close the Auto key, go to frame 0, maximize the viewport, and go Tools, Preview, grab Viewport and create Preview Animation. Check the settings and press Create. Vertigo effects can also be done nicely on far cameras, but not as good as zooming in on a target. So that's it for the vertigo effect camera movement, one of the best tricks to make an impact on the viewers. Camera movement techniques, the Spidercam. Directors always wanted more control of camera movement, and so do we. That's why they invented drone cameras, cameras on a wire, and eventually the Spidercam. In Max, things are much easier as we have full control of our camera passes. Let's learn the Spidercam movement in Max. So that's our project from the top, and now I want to animate my camera on a specific path and I want to have full control on it. Let's draw a line and press F3 for wireframe. Let's put points of that line roughly to where I want my camera to move. Let's isolate the line we just drew. It's on the 0 level. Let's move it upward and unisolate so now it is above our building. While working, I find the navigation in the scene is slow. Let's speed it up. I will make a selection of the needed part and isolate. Now things are much lighter. To minimize distraction, I will select all, deselect the large ground, right-click and isolate selection again. Now it's time to create our camera. Go to Create, Camera, select Vray, press on Physical Camera and Create. Create the camera near the starting position and the target near the end position targeting the building. Now we have a camera and we have a line. What we are going to do now is to make the camera follow that path of the line we just created. To do that, we will go to Animation, Constraints, Path Constraints while the camera is selected. Then we will pick the line. Now, Max created an animation for the camera with the full length of our timeline, in our case at 300 frames. Let's examine the movement in two viewports. One of them make it top with zoom extent, and the other we will press C to look from the camera, and move the timeline bar. As you can see, the camera now moves on the path we drew for it. Better yet, it is attached to that path. If we edited any part of that line, the camera will move along with it, giving us endless possibilities and full control of camera movement. Let's refine our movement by editing that line. First thing first, as a general rule, do not let the vertices be corner. Always make them smooth. Let's go to the line, go to the vertex level, select all vertices and convert to smooth. Why we did that? Because if the vertices is not set to smooth, there will be an annoying sudden shock when the camera reaches that point that is set to corner, for example. The other thing is the target is at the 0 level. Let's move the target up a bit. Also, the camera is too near here. We can fix that by decreasing the focal length. As a general rule, do not make focal length less than 18. Let's go with 22. Notice that we can't move our camera further using the Move tool because the camera is now attached to the line. Okay, what if I want to adjust the position of the camera at the first frame? Well, now I will need to move the vertices of the line itself. Now I continue adjusting the position of the line and vertices to get a decent first shot for my camera. Do not try to move the camera itself. It's a mistake. Only move the line and vertices. Now my control of position will be by moving the line as a whole, like this, or by moving the vertex like that. The other thing that will control the camera framing is the target. Let's select the target and move it to the middle. Let's adjust the target to give us the best possible framing in the first frame. Target can also be animated. Press Auto key and give it a key in the first frame. If we move the animation slider here, we will find that at some point the target needs to be repositioned. Let's select the target and move it. Notice a keyframe has been created here and the target changes its position through time. Now that we learned all the tricks, let's play. I want the camera to move next to the building, then go through the balcony and end there viewing the back garden. To do that, I will need to adjust every point along the path. Let's go to the first frame, move the point further, giving us a better view. Let's move along the timeline and continue adjusting my path. Let's view it here from the top. Close the Auto key so the points doesn't get animated. Move the slider and move the point where the camera is standing. Notice the camera view here while adjusting. Maybe at that point I want the camera here near the building. As I move along the timeline, the camera will reach the next point. I will adjust it from the top for the horizontal position and use the Z spinner here to adjust the vertical position, making the camera move in a narrow place, showing these details of the windows. I can also adjust all points from the top to where I want the path of the camera to be. Let's check, and oh, there is something wrong here. Camera moved back upwards. That's not what I want. Let's view it from the side. Those points here needs to move down for the path to be at the balcony. Let's select these points and move them down. I might also adjust the other point here for a smoother pass. The smoother, the better. Let's recheck again. Here is the start, then goes near the building, showing the details, then enters the balcony and ends here. The movement is fine, but the last part I don't like it to be looking at the floor like that. To fix that, we need to adjust the position of the target. But more important, I need to add more movement here. I will move these points for my desired movement here. Now I will open the Auto key to adjust the position of the target in the last keyframe. I will spend some time to fine-tune the movement through every point of the line. Before we continue, I want to explain something here. Let's isolate the camera and the line and pay attention to this. This camera animation of 300 frames are distributed along the length of the line used. So at frame 300, the camera has to be at the end point of the line. And at frame 0, the camera has to be at the beginning of the line. A problem that may face you is, let's say, at this frame here, the camera is at the middle of the line. If we press on motion, go down to along the path, the camera is at exactly 46% of the path. So at frame 140, it's 46 point something of the pass. Now if we go to the line and change its length by moving one of the points, the camera position will change to keep up being in the middle of the pass. And that might mess up your camera movement. So it's not recommended to do that. Right click to undo. Back to our scene, and let's check the camera movement one more time. Let's go to frame 0, Tools, Preview, grab Viewport, create Preview Animation. Make the percentage of the output 100% and press Create. Just like all other cameras, we will rename the temporary video file to keep it from being overwritten. So that's it for the Spidercam camera movement. A full control of your camera movement along the path.